and athletes alike. And I also work with our younger athletes called Blaze Kids. My foundation is Unity Fighters Foundation, a nonprofit. Again, that's part of the advocacy program that I have for fighters and athletes. So I do a lot. I've been in the industry for about 9 years, and I've worked with some of the top doctors in the world on concussions and prevention.
Wow. You stay busy.
Yes. I'm known as the ambassador of combat sports. So I'm the little redhead Irish girl that will take up a fight anywhere, anytime, with anyone.
It's good to know. If I ever get caught in a dark alley, I'm calling you.
There you go.
Well, Dr. Benjamin, it's definitely always an honor and a pleasure having you on. Love picking your brain, especially when interesting topics come up. And I'm sure we got an interesting one when everyone woke up, January 4th or 5th it was, when the news broke about the whole pre-fight drug screening of one Mr. John Jones. Now, you've been out there talking about this thing. There's plenty of fingers and blame to be laid on all sides here. How did we get to a point where a fighter failed a post-fight drug screening not done by the State Athletic Commission, and he was allowed to partake in his fight within a month of taking said drug? How did we get here?
That's a very, very good question. To me, it underscores the fact that maybe Nevada State Athletic Commission isn't the right entity to be supervising this process. I mean, they're good people. They're doing their very best. But it's not really what they're trained to do. And one of the things that I always say is, everybody, let's stay in your lane. UFC promotes fights. I'm a medical person, so I'll speak towards medical issues. Nevada State Athletic Commission, a lot of attorneys, a lot of nice people, but supervising enhanced PED testing doesn't seem like their forte.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of almost like they're like picking and choosing at this point in time, because it just came out within the last 24 hours that Ashley Evans-Smith was popped for a diuretic, and that she has a hearing before the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Granted, she fought on a different card, but, here we are. We had a guy who was popped for cocaine, and he's more like being almost kind of trotted out here as a hero for going to get help, while we have, some girl who is a vegan. She doesn't take any supplements. She's hit with a diuretic, and that she has a hearing in front of the Nevada State Athletic Commission. That even makes you scratch your head even more as the morality goes around.
Yeah, I mean, part of the problem I think that the fans have is there seems like there's really no uniform standard. It's just whatever they feel like on that particular day. As far as the cocaine with John Jones, the thing that I'm most concerned about is I'm not a parish priest, so I'm not there, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not there to judge him or damn him to hell or anything of this nature for the choices that he makes. That's a grown man, and if he decides to party when he wants to party, that's really his business as far as I'm concerned. The issue that I have is as a medical person, what is the safety? What are the ramifications, medically speaking, of the choices that he made and of the knowledge that the NSAC had? And the issue that I have with cocaine, especially cocaine in athletes, is sudden cardiac death. I mean, there's a long litany, Len Bias for one. There's a long litany of people of high-caliber elite athletes who've dropped dead and found that, hey, lo and behold, they had cocaine in their system. One of the things that I really want to stress to people is the mere fact for a young person taking cocaine, it quadruples the risk of sudden cardiac death. Now, it's death. It's not a heart attack. It's death. And if you add exertion on top of that, like, say, a high-caliber elite MMA fighter who's training his cardios like crazy to get ready for one of the biggest fights of his life, maybe a situation like that, cocaine on top of that training, how many times has the risk for sudden cardiac death gone up now? There's a lot of black eyes that UFC takes all the time, but a death of John Jones isn't one of them that we want to try to deal with. And so the question I have is, the NFAC knows that you have a guy that's training, pushing his cardio to the limits to get ready for a fight within 30 days. You also know that the same fighter has taken cocaine. Don't you have some sort of responsibility, as their mission statement says, to protect the safety of the public and the participant? That's their main mission.
Yep.
That's their main mission. Don't you have some responsibility?
And the reasoning was an administrative oversight.
And that
okay.
that is a statement saying we're going to brush this underneath the carpet and pretend that we didn't know. And I'm sorry.
The thing that I say about it is go ahead. I don't want you to jump on me, redhead. Okay, go ahead.
Oh no, I won't jump on you. No, I'm sorry. I don't have respect for organizations that bully and don't protect their fighters or try to do things the dirty way. I'm sorry. I have. It's come a long way for UFC, granted. I do think the seat needs to be filled now with someone else. That's just my opinion. Now we're starting to see all the things that were swept under the rug come to surface, and it's about time.
You know, the issue, I can't quarrel with anything you said. I don't know the intention. You know, I won't try to opine the intention of what they were doing when they did not intervene and kept this a secret till after the fight. But it's curious, if you didn't think it was important enough to intervene, why didn't you just disclose it? Why did you wait till after the fight? Because you knew it was a bombshell. And, you know, the issue becomes, I'm not saying you are doing anything wrong, but in my line of work, an administrative oversight, sorry, I just missed it, had a bad day, it's called malpractice. So absolutely. I recognize the standard is higher for me, but you know they have medical people on their board. They have a medical director at the NFAC, and he's an orthopedic surgeon.
And they should have the best of the best on there.
The question is, as soon as they made this orthopedic surgeon aware that, hey, you know what, John Jones just popped for a cocaine metabolite, and we know that he's training, getting ready for this fight, you know, what was the suggestion that position provided? I mean, you have a medical director for a reason. I'm sure you must have run this by a medical director, and it's hard for me to believe that he said, yeah, you know, risk of sudden cardiac death, but it's John Jones. Let's just tell everybody after the fight. That's hard for me to accept, and in my line of work, that's called malpractice.
I wholeheartedly agree. Like it could. What if that fight went south? What if for argument's sake, you know, Daniel hits John with a peep right in the heart, and you know he had a cardiac arrest right then there in the cage and died. Well, then the UFC would be pointing fingers elsewhere and be like, oh no, you know, he did that on his own accord. That has nothing to do with us. You know, we're real sorry to John and his family about how everything went down, but he insisted on competing, and then try to wash our hands of that.
The other thing to think about is, what is the most common reason for stroke in an otherwise healthy young person? Drug ingestion. Okay? So once again, you get hit in the head after a fight, you have a bleed on your brain, which is basically a stroke. You know, in many cases, you know, subdural hematoma, bleed on the brain, some types of strokes. I mean, was it the punch? Was it the cocaine that you knew he took that you didn't do anything about? Was it a combination of the two? Who are you to play that type of judge? Your job is your mission statement. Your mission statement, the real reason that you exist is for the safety of is to protect enhance and protect the safety of the public and the participants. That's on their website. That's their mission statement. All I'm saying is just do your job.
Right.
I mean, one of the good things that I've read recently is that the CIR, carbon isotope ratio, has been done on John Jones' sample, and it's come back clean. So there doesn't appear to be any illegal substances in his system. Fantastic, wonderful. Never said there was. I just said when there's a curious value on the T ratio, you need to check. When he's been popped for something else, you need to check. So I'm glad they did. The funny thing is they said the test costs $450, which is a lot of money for them. That tells you how meager their budget is for performance-enhancing drug testing. A budget that meager with no real experts on their staff, they need to farm it out to someone else. What's wrong with VADA? I keep coming back to it. What's wrong with hiring VADA? What did VADA do to somebody? I mean, what pictures does VADA have of someone where everybody is overlooking the capable, respectable professionals that are right there in your town that used to sit on the VADA State Athletic Commission? I mean, they were good enough to be on your commission for years and years and years. Dr. Margaret Goodman and Dr. Flip Omansky, they were there forever. Now they leave the commission and they open VADA, and all of a sudden they're pariahs, they're not to be trusted. Someone needs to explain that to me. And if it's just a personality conflict, get over it and be professional, because the job you're doing is not up to snuff.
Mhm. And what people don't realize is that, promotion in particular, cutting corners is going to cost someone's life, and then you have to deal with the heat of the consequences of what happened. And honestly, in this type of profession, when you're talking about two athletes who are basically fighting and putting themselves health-wise at risk, you should be putting their longevity and their health first and not thinking about pocketbooks. And honestly, if you can't do that, you should not be in business. That's just my thought process, because you are in control of these people's lives. You have contracts with these people. You talk to them on a daily basis, and if you don't, you should be. And if John Jones had this so-called addiction, I don't know if this was a one-time use, only he can answer that. However, you as the promoter and the organization should know your fighters well enough to know if someone is using a substance, because there's always a behavior change. There are things that change in a person's physical appearance as well. You should be wide awake and aware of your fighters, your athletes on your team. You should always know that.
You know, the thing about it is, in trying to be as fair as I can be to the UFC, I don't really hold the UFC at fault here. I mean, I hold them at fault for a lot of things, but this really isn't one of those issues. Because one of the things with the UFC is they have to respect the privacy of their fighters and so on and so forth. So, you know, I give them some amount of leeway on this. But the thing that I don't respect on this particular occasion is the NSAC knowing this and doing nothing about it. I mean, the promoter's lane is to promote the fight. Okay, I'll give you that. But what is the NSAC's lane? Their lane is to protect the fighter, not to protect. You know, I asked a simple question. Who did the NSAC really protect here? Did they protect the fighter, or did they protect the integrity of the fight card? I mean, to me, it looks like they just were hey, we're going to do whatever we have to do to make sure they get to that ring. And everybody gets paid, and we get our fee. And that's, to me, the inherent conflict of interest, because the vast majority of the budget of the NSAC, or any athletic commission for that matter, is fees paid by the promoter. So, unfortunately, the system has created a situation where the State Athletic Commission, whose job should be promoting the fighter and not promoting the fight card, is now a financial partner of the promoter. So at the end of the day, I got to get paid. So I mean, how popular would they have been with their business partner, the UFC, if they would have scrapped that fight? All hell would have broken loose.
It would have broken loose, but if they had been explanatory in the reasons why, that's part of protecting their fighters' well-being. I mean, just like you said,
I agree with you absolutely. They shouldn't care about the ramifications. My job is first to protect the fighter. Whatever happens after that, we'll deal with it. But my first job is to protect the fighter. And unfortunately, it appears that they felt their primary responsibility is to protect that fight card, because that's what happened.
And that's exactly where Unity Fighters First Foundation comes in. That's exactly why fighters should come first. And your money, your UFC, money's always going to come. It doesn't matter. You've got a monopolized conglomerate that's taken over. You're going to make your money. Irregardless. I would rather save someone's life who could potentially be in danger themselves or to the other fighter involved, because, I mean, we're talking about cocaine. Cocaine is worse than weed, obviously, or marijuana, and why wouldn't you? I would totally take that chance. I would call it and say, okay, we're going to postpone this fight, and this is why. Why? Because we put our fighters first. We want to make sure that John Jones is okay and he's 100% up to par and fighting, and that this other fighter is not going to be in harm's way. That would be my thought process, and that's what their thought process should be.
The problem is you'll never be a successful promoter, because that's not how successful promoters or owners of leagues, or that's not how they do business. The way that they do business is standard, that's one of the things I talk about. One of the standard for a regular person when you come into say an orthopedic surgeon, since that's what when you come into my office, the standard is what's the best thing to do for you and your well-being, both short-term and long-term.